Lee. And hello to the other couple of people who are hanging about there in chat. Please do say hello and interact. So, what's this guy? I've got 3 words for him here. Arvita wants a class include advanced topics. Yeah, totally. We did one on Friday, didn't we? Have you seen it? I think you were there for part of it, actually. I did something a bit more advanced on Friday. We did. It was a listening comprehension video about the unconsciousness. You can take a look at it. Certainly a more complicated, more advanced topic, and ideally I would have a discussion as well, but I don't think I had any live students at the time. So anyway, Mr. Advanced English, can you tell me who this guy is? There's 3 words we could have for this person in English. We've got a r and a berg. Thank you very much, Tifa. Look, she's killing it. No one's got the top one, though. Da da da. Sorry if you can hear the rain. It's just the weather's suddenly gone crazy. Right now, the weather's gone crazy. Has no one got the top one? It's just more specific. Oh no, Gus is having to bail. Alright, no problem, Gus. Jewelry thief. Thank you very much. So, jewel thief or a jewelry thief. And actually, that's kind of what we're doing about today. So, I'm going to show you some words that relate to the task involved in this lesson. And I'd like you to guess what the task is. So the task involves jewel thieves, steal, work out a plan the robbery, a key in his pocket, not allowed any weapons. So what do you think is the task? This is a fictional task that we're going to do today. Could you guess what the task is? Talk about crime. Yeah, a little, but I mean, it's a bit of a boring task, isn't it? Just talking about crime. Finding out who is the thief. Now that's a good task. I like that kind of task. That would be really cool. It's not what we're doing today though. But it's the right idea. It's the right idea. Catching the thief. Well, I mean, that would be even better, wouldn't it? But I mean, catching the thief on an online stream could be tricky. How about if I show you that? What do you think now? What is that on the screen? Sketch. It could, I mean, it's not really a sketch. Is something that you kind of draw quickly with a pencil. A map of the exhibition, says Tifa. When you say the exhibition, what exhibition? What is it a map of? Croquis? What is that? Croquis. Croquis is a quick, sketchy drawing of a live model. So croquis is like a sketch, but of a live person, a live model. So it's definitely not croquis. It's a map, isn't it? But what's it a map of? Is it a map of an office? Ah, Tifa says, is it a museum? That's right. It is a museum. And what's... Ah, to rob something in the museum. And what does this museum have that might be useful or might be worth robbing? Can you see anything in there that might be worth a lot of money? The diamond, that's right. So in fact the task today is to plan how to rob the diamond. But this is a little bit more complicated than just, oh, there's a map. You can see there's some things there on the map. You can see in fact there's some people. What do you think those people do? The gold sarcophagus, says Alvita. Well, first of all, well done for using the language sarcophagus, but I guess it's the same word in Spanish. And yeah, you're probably right. The gold sarcophagus probably is worth quite a lot of money. Maybe that would be a better idea than robbing the diamond. The diamond maybe looks a little bit tricky to get to, perhaps. So, the largest and most valuable diamond in the world, the blue ice diamond, is on display at National Museum, and you are going to pretend to be an international jewel thief who's planning to steal the diamond. You're going to work out a plan. You must not get caught, and I'm going to read some information that you need to plan. Okay, so here comes the information. Number 1, the museum is open from 9:30 a.m. until 5:30 p.m. When the museum's open, 4 guards stand by the diamond at all times. So it would be very difficult to rob the diamond during the day. At 5:30 p.m, the front doors are locked. That's F there. And the keys are kept by one of the security guards. The 2 windows, W, are locked from the inside. And there are 2 security cameras, S. One at the front of the building, you can see, and one pointing at the diamond in the dining room. When the museum is closed, there are 2 guards on duty. One guard walks around and you can see his path on the map, and the other guard sits in the office watching the screens. Every hour, the 2 guards change places. There's also an emergency phone, PH, there. As soon as the guard picks up the phone, an alarm rings in the police station next door. The blue ice diamond, X, is kept behind a locked glass door, G, which is connected to an alarm. If anyone breaks the glass, an alarm will go off. The key which opens the glass door is kept in a cupboard in the security room, and that is D there next to the guard. There's also a spare uniform, C, in the security room. The guards do not have guns, and you are not allowed to take any weapons into the museum. There's the information you can see. So, do you have any ideas? Is there anything you could tell me about this that might be a part of a plan? What's the first thing to do? If you want to steal this diamond, what could you do first? Or how could you do it? Could I have any suggestions of how to start? Important that, I mean, when the museum's open, the guards are by the diamond, so what can you do about that? Not a lot. You kind of need to be in the museum at night, but then how do you get into the museum? Any ideas for that? Once you've given me some ideas, then we're going to listen to a plan that I made. But I want some ideas first. This is imaginary. You can use some creativity. I tell you what I will do, Alvita, is I'll start to share the PDFs of these classes under the video. Maybe let's not worry a lot about the details, but just give me a few ideas of things you could do to get started here. How do you get the key? There's 2 keys you need. And what do you do once you have the key? How is it possible to be in the museum at night? Because that's what you need, right? You need to be in the museum at night. But there's a security camera outside. I think I'm going to shut my window because it's getting a bit crazy. Okay. Alright, not feeling very creative. Okay. So Tifa says attack guard A first. Well, you have to get into the museum at night first, because in the daytime there's 4 guards by the diamond, so it's a different situation. So really the first thing you need to do is somehow get into the museum at night. You've got 20 seconds to give me an idea. Then I'm going to just show you my plan. And hello to everyone watching this video later. My name is ProfesorRich. Please like, share and subscribe. We're losing about 8 subscribers a month on average at the moment, which is good. It's gone up. There's a lot of change, you know. You actually lose a lot more than that, and other people coming in, which is good. That's what we need, really. A lot of those people are going to be subscribers from 10 years ago who probably are in a completely different place in their English learning now. Right, okay guys, we're going to move on, and I'm going to show you. We're going to listen to my plan. So, I want to know, as you listen to my plan, since you didn't have much of a plan, your plan was to attack the guard and that's it. Let's listen to see what similarities that there are with my plan and yours. And I also would like you to just listen to some of the language that I'm using. Is it the same language that you would use to talk about this kind of task? And this is the important thing about task-based learning. It's all about noticing the language that a native speaker uses. That's really the key skill in task-based learning. Are you ready to have a listen? Let's listen.
Okay, so this is my plan. I think I'll wait inside the building until the museum closes. I'm not sure there's any other way of getting into the museum. Once it closes, I'll need a place to hide. The Egyptian room seems like a good place to hide to me. I'll probably hide in a sarcophagus. Then I'll have to wait until the guard goes past, the guard who is patrolling, and I'll steal a key from his pocket. If he notices me, obviously, I'll have to run. I won't be able to do anything unless I get that key. Then I'll have to try and get the other key from the security room cupboard. Unless the other guard leaves, it'll be really difficult. I'll probably wait until the change of the guard to see if I get a chance. If I get the other key, I can take the spare security uniform on the way out and then run to the diamond room, open the door and take the diamond. Once I have the diamond, I'll be able to escape through the windows. It'll probably be all fine unless I run into the patrolling guard.
All right. So, Tifa started to get there in the end. Thank you very much, Tifa. You mentioned staying in the toilet past 3:30. Now, I do think there was something similar to that in my plan, wasn't there? Did you hear it? And what else did you hear about my plan? And did you notice any interesting language there? And I don't mean words like sarcophagus. Actually, Albita had already said sarcophagus, and that's great. But I'm talking more about the functional language, structural language. What kind of structures was I using in that plan when I made that plan? Hello to the people in the chat. You're watching ProfesorRich English class, and we are currently listening to a plan to rob a diamond from a museum. Of course, it's just imaginary. You don't need to call the police. All right. So what we can do... Oh, nice. I will escape from the window unless... Yeah, so you did hear something, and it's something good as well. So you can see here the script. This is the tape script, right? And we can sort of look at this. This is the things that I said. In fact, maybe we can look at this while sort of I play it again. And you just have a look and think about which of these structures could be useful for you. Do you use these? I mean, if we looked at Tifa, what she said there, she said staying in the toilet when it passed 5:30. Now, I understand the meaning of what Tifa's saying, but perhaps the grammar could be a bit better. We might be able to identify some of that in the language I've used here. So I'm going to play the plan again, and you just have a look and... just think about and highlight the vocabulary that you think could be useful. If this were in a class, then I would give you a printed copy to underline. So let's have a listen.
Okay, so this is my plan. I think I'll wait inside the building until the museum closes. I'm not sure there's any other way of getting into the museum. Once it closes, I'll need a place to hide. The Egyptian room seems like a good place to hide to me. I'll probably hide in a sarcophagus. Then I'll have to wait until the guard goes past, the guard who is patrolling, and I'll steal a key from his pocket. If he notices me, obviously I'll have to run. I won't be able to do anything unless I get that key. Then I'll have to try and get the other key from the security room cupboard. Unless the other guard leaves, it'll be really difficult. I'll probably wait until the change of the guard to see if I get a chance. If I get the other key, I can take the spare security uniform on the way out and then run to the diamond room, open the door and take the diamond. Once I have the diamond, I'll be able to escape through the windows. It'll probably be all fine, unless I run into the patrolling guard.
Okay. So the ideal situation here is that you identify the language yourself. And Tifa's actually done it there. So we've got until, if, once. Yeah. And you've also got unless. There's an akan as well. I can take. Another unless, until, then. So all these kind of future time clauses we call them, but we just want to look a bit more at those structures, don't we? So, first we're going to focus on form. Normally I would focus on meaning first, actually, but we're going to do form today because they all have the same form. So, if he notices me, obviously I'll have to run. Unless the guard leaves, it'll be really difficult. Once I have the diamond, I'll be able to escape. So you can see there's two clauses to each part, and we want to know the verb form used after the conjunction. If, unless, once, until, and the verb form used in the other part. So which verb form is used after the conjunction, after if, after unless, after once, and which verb form is used in the other part. You can express that any way you want. Hopefully the idea that you have is, number one, it's the present. We're talking about the future, but it's the present. And in the other parts, we use some form of the future, which could be will or may or can, whatever, anything you can use to refer to the future can go in the other part. Oh, I don't have a focus on meaning here. Pronunciation. Okay, that's interesting. We missed the missed the focus on meaning. So maybe we do need to focus a little bit on meaning to understand, well, what's the difference between all these things. So if it rains tomorrow, I won't go to the beach. If it rains tomorrow, it won't go to the, I won't go to the beach. This is a basic future conditional, isn't it? If it rains tomorrow, I won't go to the beach. The idea being, maybe it'll rain tomorrow, and if it does, I'll go to the beach. Or my intention is to go to the beach. Okay, that's what that means. How about if we say, unless it rains tomorrow, I won't go to the beach. So, unless it rains tomorrow, I won't go to the beach. So, if it doesn't rain, what happens? Do I go to the beach or not in this situation? If it doesn't rain. So, unless is very much like if not. Unless it rains tomorrow. It's like if not, or if it doesn't rain tomorrow. If it doesn't rain tomorrow, I won't go to the beach. If not. So this one is a bit of a strange sentence because it's saying if it does rain, then I might or I will go to the beach if it does rain. But if it doesn't rain, I won't go to the beach, right? So that's unless. Unless is very much like if not. How about until? Until you come home, I won't start cooking dinner. So, when will I start cooking dinner? Before you come home or after you come home? That's right, it's after. Thank you very much. We have a new star student. See, Gus, you've missed out. That's right. So, after that person comes home, what happens? Hang on, let me think about this. So we've got until, unless, if. I think we can go on to some practice, okay? So here's some example sentences. We'll just throw these in. If you're still in the... Oh. My face has disappeared. Excuse me. There we go. So, if you're still here, Alvita, you can have a go here as well. These are just example practices. So this is to practice the language that we just looked at. You come up with your own examples. This is called personalization because it's your example. These don't have to be true. You just have to use your imagination or your own creativity to come up with some examples, right? And that process of personalization will help these structures stick in your head. So, for example, I might say, once I have enough money, I'll buy a mobile home and travel Spain. So, any other examples? Do you want to have a go? You don't have to do them in order. Just choose one and give me an example sentence. It doesn't need to be true. It's just about using your creativity, which will help you remember these structures. And hello to the people who are coming and going in chat. Are you real students? Are you Russian bots? I have no idea. But I can see people coming and going. I always find it quite confusing. It's probably me. It's me loading up extra tabs. So let's have another one here. Let's have once I get home. Once I get home, I'll put my feet up and have a nice rest. Once I get home, I'll put my feet up and have a nice rest. Now, for pronunciation, I would tell you to notice specifically how I pronounce that part. Once I have enough money, I'll buy a mobile home and travel Spain. Once I get home, I'll put my feet up and have a nice rest. Once I'm 75, I'll go skydiving with my 105-year-old dad. Once I'm 75, I'll go skydiving with my 105-year-old dad. Until I can speak English really well, I'll keep watching ProfesorRich live streams. Any creative examples there? If you do post your own example in the chat, post the number as well so I can see which sentence you're referring to. Remember, it doesn't have to be true. It's just about using your imagination, inventing something, and that process of inventing is called personalization, and it will help you to remember and use the language. Gives it meaning to you. You'll be able to find true love if you stop looking for it. Notice the form. We're using present form, even though we're talking about a future possibility, because the part after if has to be in the present. I'll come to class tomorrow unless I win the lottery, in which case I'll celebrate winning the lottery instead. Until summer finishes, until summer finishes, I'll until summer finishes, I'll keep my fan on. Oh, my fan on at night. Gus is back. Thank you, Gus, for coming back. I just want to be part of the community. You are the community. You are the community. Yeah. I'll stay in Hawaii for a month if I have £3,000 of my savings. Okay, so Tifa there has gone for the difficult option of making her own example. I'll stay in Hawaii for a month if I have £3,000 in savings. Is that how much it costs in Hawaii? £3,000 for a month. My word. Alright, so there's your future time clauses. There's your examples. As I said, the important point about the pronunciation for these is probably contracted will. Once I have enough money, I'll buy a dog. I'll buy a dog. Once we have enough money, we'll buy a dog. It'll be great. It'll be great. It'll be great. It'll be great. If they get a dog, they'll be so happy. If they get a dog, they'll be so happy. Once we get a dog, once we have enough money, we'll buy a dog. It'll be great. If they get a dog, They'll be so happy. Once I have enough money, I'll buy a dog, or I'll buy a cat. Yep, of course, no problem, Tifa. That's my job. So today we did something called task-based learning. What do you think about it? So task-based learning, the process is 1. Perform a task. 2. Listen to a native speaker performing the task. 3. Notice the difference in the language you used for the task and the language that the native used. Okay. 4. Study the language. 5. Practice the language. And 6 would be the ultimate step, would be to do the task again or a similar task. And if we were in a class, that's what I would do now. Instead of the jewel robbery, I have a zombie apocalypse task where you have to break into the zombie laboratory and you have to steal the cure for the zombie virus. Unfortunately, I don't have that on me right now. We're not going to do that. But this was an example of a task-based learning class, which is one of my favorite types of class, especially in a real classroom. And here's your homework if you wish to participate. I'd like you to write sentences with future time clauses. Try to make them unexpected and creative. So future time clauses, you don't have to only use the ones that were in the lesson today. There are lots of them. And since Alvita was saying, you know, he's very advanced, then he could use some advanced ones, right? Future time clauses, things like when, until, unless, as soon as long as, what's another thing? Assuming you arrive on time, I'll cook the dinner. What else we got? There's bloody loads, isn't there? I mean, after and before. Yeah. Before he arrives, I'll cook dinner. After she arrives, I'll cook dinner. Yes, Tifa, that's exactly right. That's basically the idea of what we would do now in a real class, is I would give you the same or a more difficult, more complex task, and that would give you an opportunity to repeat the task, but this time to use the language that we focused on. And task-based learning is very much about that gap, the gap of when you first did the task and you noticed the language that you didn't have, and then the second time you do it, you get a chance to use that language. And I very, very, very much like it a lot. It's one of my favorite methodologies in language learning, actually. What other future time clauses we got? After, before, unless, until. Is that about it? I mean, there's loads, really. Once and when. As long as soon as, just before he arrives, I'll cook dinner. Have we got anything else interesting? Gus, you have one video on your channel where you said that if you understand movies, 95% of the language in the movie, you're done. But in the description, you said you've changed your mind a bit. Would you care to elaborate on that? All right. Let's wrap that up then and get to our Q&A. We'll do a bit of Q&A. Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot. There he is. Yeah. Tifa suggesting supposing that. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a very conditional one, isn't it? It's very much like if. If it rains, we'll go to the beach. If it rains, we won't go to the beach. Supposing that it rains, we'll go. We won't go to the beach on the assumption that, yeah. That's also the same as if, pretty much, isn't it? On the assumption that it doesn't rain, we'll go to the beach. So here we go, Gus. You have one video on your channel where you said that if you understand movies, you're done. In the description, you said you've changed your mind a bit. Yeah. So when I actually said that, Gus, I think I'd been teaching for about 3 or 4 years. And, you know, my perception was that, I mean, to some extent, the statement does hold true for a lot of people, especially young people, in that when people get to that stage, if they're sort of a young adult or a teenager, then it will tend to be that all of their skills will have gone up around about the same rate. And that's the key part here, that you have to consider there's lots of different skills in language learning. And after being a language teacher for 12 years, you get to see people in all sorts of situations, right? So we've got listening comprehension, right? We've got speaking. And, you know, we have sub-skills as well. When it comes to speaking, you can talk about fluency, vocabulary, blah, 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 right? But let's simplify it. Listening comprehension, speaking, reading, you know, writing, and we'll simplify vocabulary and grammar and treat them as one thing, but they're not one thing, but okay, let's treat them as one thing. So you've got these different areas, right? And I would say probably fluency is quite an important one there as well. We should probably have, for speaking, really, we should have like speaking lexis and then speaking fluency and all different things like that. But let's simplify it like this. So really, if we're talking about understanding 75% of the language of the movie, we're only talking about listening comprehension. And you can absolutely have a higher level of listening comprehension than your other skills, right? So I was making the assumption that when your listening comprehension, when your listening comprehension gets to a sufficient level that you understand 95% of the language in the movie, that would make you a very good C1. If you can watch a big movie without subtitles and you understand 95% of the language, and I don't mean that you understand 95% of what happens, but I mean 95% of the language they produce, then your listening comprehension is way up there. It's way up there. And on that basis, when it comes to listening comprehension, yeah, you're pretty much done. I mean, when I say done, I mean you're probably not going to need lessons anymore unless you need to learn, you know, you want a teacher to learn something very specific. Like maybe you're moving to India and you want someone to give you some coaching on the Indian accent or something like that, right? But other than that, you're not going to need too much. You're not going to need any general focus on listening comprehension once you get to this stage. But the assumption I made when I'd said that is that all of these skills had gone up at the same rate. So that when your listening comprehension is hitting that 95%, then all these other skills presumably would also be up there at a high C1. A high C1. A high C1 is a brilliant level to have. And there's not very much that you need to do on top of that. Although I do get quite a lot of students at that level. But it tends to be low C1s, actually. I have lots of low or mid C1s. So when I said that I've changed my mind, Gus, it's basically the idea that, you know, someone might come to me with a very strong listening comprehension, but that doesn't mean that their fluency is any good. And that really does happen. It really does happen. And the other thing that happens is you get people who, they have a very strong comprehension when it comes to vocabulary and grammar, but their active vocabulary is quite poor. They always just say the same thing. And this happens a lot with people who live in English-speaking countries. So I had a student just the other day who came to me, and we did a needs analysis, and this student had lived in Australia for 18 years, and their comprehension was very strong, really, really strong, right? They understood everything I said, and I got them talking about globalization, like throwing all this stuff at them, and they were following the conversation, no problem. But the way they were speaking and using vocabulary was like B1, right? Like far, let's say, far less sophisticated than the language, Gus, that you use on a regular basis in the chat here. You know, they were saying very kind of, you know, lots of present continuous, present simple style sentences. They were dropping lots of articles, and they were repeating the same vocabulary. This is good, this is bad, I don't like this because, you know, that sort of thing. That was how they communicated, and they were quite effective at communicating like that. But this student's problem was that they were trying to get promoted in their area of work, and they felt that people were not taking them seriously, and that they were missing out on opportunities because their active lexis was so simple. And that's where, I guess, what I said about once you understand 95%, you're done. Well, for that person, for that student, obviously they weren't done, because they very much needed to improve, and still do need to improve their active lexicon, and maybe their pronunciation as well, even though their listening comprehension was really good, probably better than 95% of the language in the movie for them. So I hope that makes sense. Really, a lot of the things that I said in the videos on this channel within like the first 4 years, I think, although mainly they're true, there will be things that have changed from a position of experience. Not only have I worked as a language teacher since then, with, you know, in the industry, but also I've taken several qualifications since then as well. So I do, you know, my perspective on some things has definitely changed, but I think that's natural, and I think it's okay to just be honest about that. A teacher is not infallible, and although expertise is a desirable trait for a teacher, I think it's okay to admit that, you know, especially when you were starting, your expertise was not complete. And actually, your expertise really is never complete. You still make mistakes. Sometimes there's an expectation of English language teachers that we have to be like magical dictionaries, so that when someone says, you know, what does this word mean? The idea that you have to be able to come out with a definition, you know, like that. And actually, you do get quite good at that. But sometimes, you know, it might not come to you. Most natives, they have an idea of what words mean, but to be able to just produce a definition on the spot might not happen. And, you know, I've learned that the best thing to do is just to be totally honest about that. Oh, I can't think of it right now. Let's have a look at Google's definition, or, you know, whatever, you know, that kind of situation. And I don't think that demeans you as a teacher, although it is always good to show expertise. At the end of the day, if you wanted a walking dictionary, then you could just get a walking dictionary, right? You could just use Google for one. So anyway, the whole point is that I'm making here is that I think it's okay for me to leave those videos up where I have said things that, like I say, I wouldn't necessarily agree with now, and I think that's fine. And, you know, maybe in 10 years' time, I won't agree with everything I'm saying now. I'm very, very keen on task-based learning right now. I think it's one of the best ways to learn. Maybe in 10 years, I'll come back and say, task-based learning is a load of rubbish. It just entertains the students, doesn't teach them anything. What we need to do is audiolingualism, right? Which is like, if you were Spanish, I'd say to you, okay, ¿cómo se dice quiero ir a casa? en inglés, right? And then you literally say, I want to go home, and then I go, I want to go home, and then you repeat it. That's audiolingualism. That was a method from the 1960s, very popular in the 1960s. And, it sounds really mechanical, doesn't it? And in communicative language teaching, we don't use that really, but some people use it. There's a very popular company in Spain. I forgot the guy's name. Richard Vaughan, they call him in Spain, but it's Vaughan. Really, he's an American guy, and he does that. He does audiolingualism, and it's super popular. He's got a TV channel. He has a channel called like Aprender Inglés or something. Learn English, right? It's audiolingualism. It's an outdated method from the 1960s, but outdated methods still work. Just because they're outdated doesn't mean they don't work. There are reasons why we replace them, but they do work. I used audiolingualism myself when I was learning Spanish. Gus says we're oblivious to how much we don't know most of the time. Absolutely. And Tifa says, I do too. I agree that a teacher is not human, not a encyclopedia. We learn from each other and always improve. Yeah. And, I mean, we always fall into the trap of wanting to show off our skills and experience, don't we? To some extent, I think that's okay. It's okay for a teacher to take a bit of pride in their methodology and their knowledge or whatever. But I also think if you come across someone who's too much like that, to the extent where they try to hide the things they don't know, I'm not sure that I would trust that. At the end of the day, a teacher is a facilitator. They facilitate your process of learning. Obviously, it's possible for students to exceed the teachers in the things they learn. When it comes to languages, that could be pretty difficult, but it certainly does not mean that I won't come across students who, for example, work in a specific industry and know words that I don't know. And it's quite funny, really, that when we have those situations. Like, I have a student who works in like chemical some kind of biology, macrobiology, I don't know, some kind of advanced biology. And sometimes they'll give me a text to correct, and as we go through the text, we'll get to one bit and I'll say, this sounds weird to me, but maybe it's an industry term and it's what you call it in the industry. And they'll say, yeah, it's what we call it in the industry. And I'll say, okay. So in that situation, I'm correcting a student's text, and I'm actually saying it to them, is this right? Because I don't know this word or I don't know this phrase. And they'll say, oh, yeah, people say that. And I'll be like, okay, no problem, right? So, you get those sorts of situations. And, of course, that's absolutely fine. If that wasn't possible, then how would we get an Einstein in the world if it was impossible for you to ever exceed your teacher, or for teachers to facilitate the learning irrespective of whether they're always the absolute authority on information. I actually think that to some extent teachers shouldn't be an authority on information. Although to another extent they should. When someone asks me, how do you use this grammar structure, or what does this mean, I do have to do my best to give an explanation of it, of course. It's definitely a part of the job. Although some people would argue that the students should be encouraged to discover it. But I think explaining is still a skill teachers need to do. All right, I think we're going to wrap up, guys, unless there's any other quick questions. Thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to Tifa and Gus and Alvita at the start of the class. Alvita seems to like to come in at the start and say hello and then disappear. Gus is now using his favourite phrasal verb, wrap it up. And apparently there's 5 quiet people sitting in chat saying nothing. So hello to you guys, or Russian bots, or whatever you are. Why don't you like, subscribe, and share with your Russian bot friends? All right. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll be doing streams like this next week as well. Let's keep pushing on with this. My dream is to one day do a class with 10 people live in the chat. Is that possible? Let's hope so. All right. Have a nice day, everybody. Enjoy your week. Enjoy what's left of your weekend, and I will catch you later.